Wine growing is undoubtedly one of the most French professions in the world. In the Bordeaux region, as here, in Burgundy, on the banks of the Loire, or of the Rhône, centuries of work have gone into forging the reputation of our vineyards. France has always exported its wines, but today what's new is that it's now exporting its wine growers. Michel Chapoutier has created a huge extension to his estate of Côte-du-Rhône in the very south of Australia, far away from his tiny French-style plots.
Poor Burgundians, if they could only see this.
At the foot of the Andes, Louis-Antoine Luyt has fallen in love with the wide spaces of Chile.
It goes a long way. All that is vineyards. This is the heart of the wine-growing region. Here, there's everything.
He settled here penniless to make wine in the old way.
Some people say we're mad. So what?
Pierre Seillan left his native Gascony when he was almost 50 to create the finest wines in California.
You see how much length this wine has?
Americans spend fortunes buying his wines. It's market day in Cauquenes, a little village lost in the Chilean countryside. Here, small farmers are not very rich. That's what attracted Louis-Antoine when a good dozen years ago he decided to become one of them, to get back to the simple life, far removed from productivity and profit.
People come here to exchange, to buy, because there's quite a bit of bartering. There are people who do wool, sheep, so they trade their wool for potatoes, for strawberries, for hares, for fish. There's still quite a good bartering system.
This young Frenchman settled here with his family. He adopted a very simple way of life. He dreams neither of fortune or glory. Louis-Antoine Luyt is an inhabitant of Cauquenes, like anybody else.
Corvinilla is a really good fish. And we'll have some. We're going to make a ceviche for ourselves at lunchtime. I've actually cooked quite a lot. So what I love here, it's one of the things that allows us to stay, is that we have fresh fish twice a week. Thank you. Thanks. See you soon. We're going to go and see a producer, a barman. We're going to pay him a visit. Do you have any new wine here?
Pipeño.
Give me a glass. We're going to try a glass of Pipeño. That's the local wine.
I have white too.
No, this is fine, thanks.
Louis-Antoine is a jack of all trades. He has been a cook, a barman, a sommelier in France and then in Chile, where he wound up a little by chance. And then he found Cauquenes, the peasant farmers and their vineyards. After studying enology in France, he returned to Chile, intent on producing his own wine. He became a local character.
How are you, Gaston?
Well, yesterday I was over at Picuchen finishing my first pressing.
When can we go over and taste it?
I never put them together. I always keep them separate so they retain their own individuality.
All right, but that's not what I asked. I asked, when are we going over to have a look at them?
Louis showed up here with so much energy, so much heart. He put so much energy into his project and into what he wanted to create here that we all really just fell under his spell.
As for Louis-Antoine, he fell in love with the grapes of the region, grapes forgotten by modern agriculture that he rediscovered with the enthusiasm of an archaeologist.
You see, there's no disease. These are grapes that are covered in dust, but they're healthy. These are ungrafted vines. You don't see that anymore in France.
In France, vines that are 50 years old are thought to be very ancient. In Chile, they are often centuries old.
These vines are 200 or 300 years old. So many years of culture, of agriculture, of knowledge.
But they're vines that don't bring much to the farmers growing them.
11 European cents, that's the price per kilo. These are extraordinary grapes. Farmers use horses to work them, vines hoed by hand. harvested manually, often hauled on ox carts in baskets woven by the farmers themselves. So if this is not something with a culture, with identity, I don't know what is. And it all fascinates me. I think it's amazing the amount of effort these people put in to produce at these prices.
Melbourne in southern Australia, very far removed from Chile and its simplicity. Here, Michel Chapoutier sees to every detail in looking after his vineyard.
The rule is that every time I have guests, I give them a new pair of shoes so that they don't go into the vineyards with their own shoes. It's a rule, so even for people who don't go into the vineyards, it's just become a reflex.
Thank you.
This is because at the end of the 19th century, absolutely all of the French grapes were destroyed by a little insect, phylloxera. It's still alive in Europe.
So I would like to offer them.
So to avoid bringing it to Australia, it's essential to wear new shoes.
And for him?
Yes. This is the chestnut. That's always stock, the chestnut.
Yeah. Le phylloxera, en 60
Phylloxera has not progressed in Australia in 70 years. And the way phylloxera will be propagated is through car tires and shoes. So, when we invite people, we tirelessly play the game. You have to have lots of ways of doing it. And we tell them, you're not allowed to go into the vineyard in European shoes. It's a precautionary rule that everyone should have. And they're a bit special, these boots that you see. They're made of kangaroo skin, which has the particularity of being extremely resistant and at the same time extremely supple. So you have the feeling you're wearing slippers.
Give also in for each shoes a pair of socks in. Okay?
Heir to a family settled in the Rhône Valley since 1808, Michel Chapoutier is a heavyweight in the world of French wine growing. 8 million bottles a year sold, from the prestigious Hermitage to the most modest of Côte du Rhône.
Did you see the kangaroos, the herd that just went by? And right here you can't get through in a 4x4, you have to be on 2 feet.
123 hectares and every millimetre cultivated in France. But here in the Australian outback, huge open spaces open to all, but where everything needed to be done from scratch.
In the beginning, when I thought of investing in Australia, it was the southern hemisphere. In those days, Chapoutier's was much smaller, so logically I was the one to come. So it could only be the southern hemisphere so that I could come in the month of March, like a restaurant owner who has one restaurant for lunchtime and another for the evening. And then, in this region, it's a Syrah region. The second largest Syrah region after the Rhône Valley is Australia. And then, there's no phylloxera here.
The
estate is run by Edouard Guérin, a young 33-year-old enologist. Michel Chapoutier spotted him in Turkey, where he was working on a beautiful farm. Here, he uses wine-growing techniques from the Rhône, but they're adapted to the local climate and to Australian fauna. Huge spiders, the most dangerous snakes in the world, and colonies of kangaroos who are just a little too fond of the grapes planted by this winemaker.
That's terrible, isn't it? We're not the best of friends, you see. I prefer them as R.M. Williams shoes, kangaroos. Or on the barbecue, but not living in the vineyards. There, look, the whole row is ruined. Blasted kangaroos.
On the other side of the Pacific is San Francisco. Northern California, the Sonoma Valley. This is perhaps the smartest wine region in the world. 15 years ago, Pierre Seillan left his native Gers and created an American domain with a Gascon accent, the Vérité Estate.
The Sonoma Valley looks a little bit like Tuscany. And you know, the Gers, they say, is Little Tuscany. So there are a lot of similarities. And that's why I feel right at home here. Mount St. Helena is a little bit like the Canigou in the Eastern Pyrenees.
That's your Canigou over there.
That's our Canigou.
Where do I sit? Next. I'm surrounded by the best woman in the world.
With his wife Monique and his daughter Hélène, he's giving an outdoor lunch underneath an oak tree near his cellar for two couples who are his clients.
You understand the French a little bit? Un petit peu? Un petit peu? Hey. You have seen, we still have the French flag here all the time, eh? The French flag is here. Cheers. Cheers. And thank you again for being here. Thank you, Denise. Cheers, Monique.
A quiche and a homemade dessert. It looks like a typical family lunch in the south of France. But there's a lot at stake here.
We're farmers. We love the earth. We love nature. We live with nature. And we want to share it. Not just wine, we want to share nature.
The bottles are worth several €100 each. The guests are very wealthy Americans who came in their private plane. VIP customers that Pierre has decided to take special care of.
You know, you are not only a customer, because we know each other in terms of family as well, you know. And this is an important approach to explain the wine, and the wine help us to be, the wine is a link of the friendship, you know. Same with you, you know, this is it.
First time we met Pierre, you know, Chris asked if he could take a picture, and he's like, "Why do you want to take a picture of me?" And she's like, "Well, you're the winemaker, you know." And since then, we just kind of developed a friendship over time. And a lot of other wineries, you don't really get that.
The wine is exceptional as well.
You know, it's just kind of, they're just not open. They don't want to share, just be in front of the, you know, the people that love their wines.
To better convince his customers, Pierre has a sure thing.
When we are done here, we are going to Mount St. Helena. Oh, beautiful. Yes, you see the mountain you see over there? Oh, yeah. Is where, yeah, we are going to have a glass of wine, of Montana wine from the inside the vineyards. Beautiful. Yeah, with a beautiful day like this.
To make his vineyard safari a little more exciting, Pierre always has a story.
This is the Montana vineyard here. Look, we're right at the foot of Mount St. Helena. There are still bears here. And bears really like that plot up there in front of us. Last year, they ate up half of it on me. It's a hassle, but it's also interesting to see that we're not the only ones who want these grapes.
Do you see that view over there? It's breathtaking.
This is Candy.
Thank you.
2004, Helena, Montana. You can see the bouquet of the Cabernet Sauvignon. And this is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon from the spot here.
It's Sunday in Chile. Louis-Antoine is taking a spin with his friend Carlos. This forest worker was the first one to have confidence in him, giving over some fallow vineyards to him. The transaction took place here, on this observatory. Since then, Louis-Antoine has made progress in topography.
That's the Antuco volcano, the Chilean volcano. That's the Neuva de Longaví, that's the Loncomilla, and up there in the north, the big volcano without a head, and the little one.
Strange and difficult to believe that there are people in the world who understand the heritage we have here. Whereas we here are in the middle of it all and don't make anything of it. It's strange to see a Frenchman land, a European, who's traveled thousands of kilometers and who makes us aware of the history of our own heritage, which has been neglected.
Re-establishing a vineyard is a gargantuan task, but Louis-Antoine is not the sort to let himself become discouraged. In Chile, at the foot of the Andes mountain range, Louis-Antoine, the wine producer, passionately launched into restoring this abandoned vineyard.
These are Pays vines, vines that must be 100 or more than 150 years old. We recovered these vines more than 10 years ago, and we've started replanting them, working them in the old way. These have been harvested. They're low vines. So you have the vines, the magnificent mountains opposite. These are old varieties worked in the traditional local way of winemaking.
For his vines, Louis-Antoine has made some radical decisions. No fertilizers, no chemical products, no machines. This is a commitment that goes one step beyond organic wine.
But it's the art of a craftsman. It takes determination to meet the constant challenge of producing what's good, what's healthy. It's taking a stand. Maybe it's not the truth, others may have a different attitude. But for us, it's important to know that there are no chemicals in it, and that's all. It's better. You feel better psychologically.
He wants to bequeath a planet and lands in good shape to his 2 children, who might stay here with their Chilean friends.
Ciao. Oye, Matilde, despídete la tía.
Hello, sweetie. Did you say hello?
Louis-Antoine, Dorothy and their 2 children live in a little house that's almost new. Their previous house was destroyed in 2011 by a violent earthquake. 44 people were killed in their neighborhood, but they came out alive.
Shall we look at our photos? Look, that's the wall of the house in front. The bathroom's completely destroyed. That was in the night. Those were the first photos taken right after the earthquake, 3:30 in the morning. And look, there's a house that's collapsed. 2 houses. All the houses around here collapsed. Look, that's the house that was on the corner of our street, you see? Another. Is that me? Yes. Look at all the injuries on your head. This is Antoine with all his bumps on the head. This is the really shocking photo, with your bed in the middle untouched. Antoine got it worst because cinder blocks fell on him in bed and he was only 5 months old. There was so much rubble, but it was the most shocking, I think. Another. I think this one's Daddy's cellar. All the barrels have collapsed, you see? All the barrels have been carefully placed. They fell down with the earthquake. Look, there's wine leaking out of the barrels. Uh-oh, the bottles. All the bottles broke. Papa had arranged the whole cellar and all the bottles broke. They all fell.
At the Luyt's house, the earthquake caused only minimal damage. But Louis-Antoine lost 70% of his production, and he had to start all over again.
In fact, it gave us more strength to carry on. I think that because we lived through it, we went forward. It's not little problems, little difficulties aren't going to make you go backwards and give up, because we lived through the earthquake, and we carried on. So it hardens you. Makes you want to continue the project, stay here in Chile with all its hazards. We know the dangers. We really don't believe it could happen again with such force. But we do know that there are quakes from time to time, and we know we have to live with them. A little shaken, yes.
In Australia, the sun is starting to set. For Michel Chapoutier and Edouard Guérin, it's time to go hunting kangaroos.
There are some over there. They're eating, so you don't really see them very, very well. You see that one just over there in the grass? You can see his head poking up above the grass. Australians don't like them very much because kangaroos have the unfortunate habit of crossing the road just as a car is coming. And wine producers don't like them very much because, well, it's a fact. Sometimes when there's not much left to eat, kangaroos will go for the grapes. And we're not very happy about that. Having said that, a kangaroo is still a lovely animal, and it's endemic, so we have to respect it. And it belongs here more than we do. We have to give it room, that's all. That's the way it is. We're in Australia, we have to adapt. That's also one of the parameters of the land. Look, isn't that one beautiful?
In the middle of his vineyard, Michel Chapoutier forgets his unwelcome visitors by taking part in a good old French ritual. Besides wine, two things count for him: relaxing with his workers and seeing that everyone has his chance.
Oh, purée.
Don't waste the balls.
Oh, it's not easy to tell.
For me, pétanque is fun when it's all-terrain bowling. I mean, you have to give luck a chance, so the ground must be very rough. This way, beginners have as much chance as real players. That's real pétanque, all-terrain pétanque.
Not necessarily playing by the rules.
I think ours has it. And maybe this one.
Well, push yours back a bit.
We're going to take the pipette and go taste these merlots here. You see? From 1 to 4.
In California, Pierre Seillan hands down his secrets to his daughter. One day she'll take over. So every morning in the cellars, she learns the methods developed by her father.
50 and 51 right here. I was a hooker in rugby. My props are the barrels, so nothing changes for me. Oh, look at that color already. Very good. Give me the wine, close the barrel, and I'll take this back.
Discreetly, in her own way, Hélène also learns about the terroir.
Very grand. And so this nose is very typical to these soils. Now this will be a very important element in the assembly. Next.
He can taste a good 100 samples a day like this one from his precious barrels. Barrels identified by multiple codes. By the terroir, the plot, the row of the vine, the type of grape, but also the origin of the oak, always French oak, with which the barrel was made. Pierre Seillan is an extremely meticulous man.
At home, there were 2 signs on my parents' cork factory: a place for everything and everything in its place. And I was brought up like that.
These thousands of bits of information constitute a gigantic aromatic palette that allows the artist to compose his best cuvées.
You see here I have a few notes for the preparation of the De la Joie project. I'll show you that very quickly. Then here, it's for Le Désir. Here for La Muse, that has percentages, quite a few different things. There's 86% Merlot, 10% Cabernet Franc, and 4% Malbec in La Muse.
And it's signed?
And it's signed. There, here I have other notes. All this part hasn't been copied, and that's how it is with me. You see, it all stays with me in the briefcase, in the plane, everywhere.
Is it a secret?
Wow, it's this year's recipe.
Training continues in the Domain's tasting room, not far from another of his manufacturing secrets, thanks to which he produces the most expensive and the most famous bottles in America. His secret is this collection of little jars, the basis of his personal alchemy.
Here's the soil of Montana, and here's the soil of Dakota, Plat 944 and Plat 952. Here's the wine, and here's the terroir. And here you can really measure the aromatic difference in the same vintage, a same grape, which are messages from the land.
Pierre Seillan has patiently identified all the soils of the region. To make his best wines, he combines the best terroirs. This gives his vintages a complexity for which the greatest wine tasters have awarded the highest notes.
The terroir on its own is far more mysterious than people. It adapts and responds to the temperature, to the sunlight, to the luminosity. It responds to cultivation and to the work of the winemaker. It responds to many parameters. That's the terroir. This mysterious side of the terroir is rather surprising. It has not yet been mastered, it has not yet been tamed, and I hope it never will be.
For Michel Chapoutier, still in Australia, no rain. Sun. Lots of sun. Lots too much sun.
The lack of rain forced us to lose what had already been planted. We couldn't save it. A minimum amount of water is needed, and it hasn't rained for 10 years. We're going to replant there now because we've rebuilt the water reserve. We can plant now.
Mustn't get discouraged, though.
No. Once you've tasted the quality of the product that's grown here, on these exceptional soils, you're motivated back into action.
The drought was nevertheless very costly.
I feel sorry for these vines. All that was pulled up. That parcel there survived without irrigation. It's called L block. And it's a dry spot. The birds love to come and eat the grapes. So we protect the vines.
After the birds and kangaroos have come through, there are only a few grapes left to harvest, with just a few days to go. But that hasn't dampened the optimism of the winemaker.
Here we are, it's 35 degrees, and at the same time the weather report this morning for Tain-l'Hermitage, at the heart of the Hermitage, was minus 1.74 degrees Celsius.
Under a blazing sun, Michel and his Australian partner check to see if the surviving grapes are fully matured.
I'm not far. I'm not far at all. Tannins are interesting. The pips are not too bitter.
We've put straw mulch here to reduce evaporation. It retains a certain amount of humidity. We realize that over there, in regards to the pellicular tannins, and even for the skin, a more interesting maturity develops than we observe over here. There's a marked difference in taste. It's perfectly ripe.
When can you harvest here?
On Friday, in 3 days. We could even do it today if we wanted to.
After the earthquake, Louis-Antoine managed to get his business going again.
Here's our makeshift cellar and our fancy presses.
Everything is done by dint of hard work and with slightly outdated equipment.
The old press, an American ratchet press.
You'll have to show me. I don't know how to use it.
Today, Louis-Antoine greets Pierre, a young 26-year-old enologist from Bordeaux, who has traveled 10,000 kilometers to learn how to make this alternative wine.
En fait, t'as pas besoin de tailler une petite fourche. Tu peux prendre ça. Ouais, tu fais. Ah, mais c'est bon, j'ai fait.
What's so amusing is to see people, young people, who are interested by discovery, and who always bring new ideas and new stories. It enriches knowledge and relationships.
With his original methods, every year Louis-Antoine attracts aspiring winemakers ready to cross the world's oceans to learn his techniques.
I want to take over from my father, but once I'm in charge of the business, I won't be able to leave it anymore. This is one of my last chances to travel far and to see something different. It's interesting for me to see the extreme, well, perhaps not an extreme, but when I see a press like that, I mean, not many people still use them.
Can you get that with your arms? Oh, wow, that's solid. I'm more manual than intellectual, but the physical effort does allow you to think. To think or to think about nothing. At times you concentrate so hard on what you're doing that you forget what you're doing. I like that. I like it a lot. I did business studies and could have been a salesman for something else. But what did I really want to do? Then you apply yourself and there you go. You're pleased with the results.
Louis-Antoine spares no effort in order to share his knowledge and to show visitors how to make wine as it used to be made. Every day during the vinification, the grapes have to be trampled in order to obtain a more concentrated juice. An operation that can be undertaken by hand, or with a stick, or by foot. By Antoine and Nicolas, another apprentice winemaker who arrived from Switzerland a month ago.
You went in rather deep there.
It's difficult here.
Yes, but don't do that in France, or you'll have trouble with the health inspectors. You're completely without security. If he sinks into the tank, we might lose him.
It's crazy. Here I am, in an aeroplane hangar, somewhere in Chile, making fine wines in plastic bins, under conditions like this. And there's Louis working with his hands. All the bins are immaculate. We can almost say that we've touched every grape with our hands. It's brilliant. It's fantastic, simply fantastic.
Louis-Antoine has even updated a local wine practice. And a rather surprising one. He ferments his wine in cow skins.
So there we have the tail, which has been cut and sealed. And there the anus, which is plugged by a bit of wood. It's really quite rustic.
It's not as crazy as all that. The method actually gives surprising results for fermenting grape juice.
Oxygen is one of the agents that helps fermentation. If you get in a bathtub or a swimming pool, you'll notice that the hairs on your body become covered with tiny bubbles of oxygen. I suppose it's the same thing that happens here. The hide must be full of oxygen. Moreover, the skin, when rinsed before fermentation, smells of yeast. It smells like a loaf of bread. It smells healthy and clean. It gave me confidence, so I used it. The first grapes that I used last year were very ripe. And they fermented at 8 degrees centigrade, which is incredible. 25 harvests, and it's not missing a hair. The grape seeds, the deposit, the fermenting wine, and all that are good for the skin.
Yeah, we can see from here pretty much where we are.
Have you seen any rattlesnake yet?
No, they're sleeping.
They're still sleeping. But you know, if you have the sun like this...
Pierre Seillan supervises a dozen employees who look after a gigantic estate. Thousands of hectares in the Californian hills. But he's not the owner. The vineyards belong to the American millionaire Jay Jackson, one of the richest wine fortunes in the world. The American and the man from the Gers became friends by chance in France. One day, the American asked the Frenchman to join him in California, and they became partners.
It was here in California that I realized I could do something with Jay Jackson and his family, the Jackson family. And it was exactly on this spot that I agreed and that I accepted to leave France and live in California temporarily. When I was young, my grandmother, who had a prune production in Agen, said to me, Californians are experts in agriculture and viticulture, but most of all in arboriculture. She told me that they produced exceptional prunes that rivaled the pruneaux d'Agen. She told me a long time ago that I must one day go and see California. And I listened to her a little.
A stroke of genius. Pierre was not 50 when he decided to abandon everything and follow his friend. In his luggage, he brought his knowledge, that of a peasant farmer from the southwest of France, a man dedicated to the simple methods that he'd learned from generations of peasants, methods that he now transmits to Mexican laborers working on a Californian estate, like Tony.
You see, I keep this one and put this cane. This one I remove this one.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because it's not on the side
it's
of the road.
It's to the side, and then the road are too
Yeah.
narrow for
Yeah.
the tractor. Yeah, you're right. Very good. Maybe this spur.
The spur and a spur here, because this one, you can see, is not on the whole wood. He doesn't have. Yeah.
To make wine, you need good grapes, and that's the work of the vine. The base of all oenology is the vine. And to know how to prune a vine at the foot of a slope or a vine that is on the slope, the terrain is not the same. You have to adapt the pruning to the lay of the land.
And how did you learn?
I learned from my parents, from my grandparents. We lived in the Gers. We planted vines where nothing else grew. In the Gers, we simply said that vines were for places where nothing else wanted to grow. I love to prune. Pruning vines is preparing a future generation. The rhythm, what is it? It's a glance at the vine, a cut. We don't waste time. When I've pruned this one here, I know where I'm going over there. That's what being a winemaker is.
Do you fly it off when it's time?
What's that?
Do you fly it off now?
It's just hit. Sometimes I'll fly 3 days.
The distances are great and the topography is rather complex. There are a lot of kilometers to cover. Efficiency is a priority. Every day is a full agenda. And the work has to get done on time, hence the modern horse. There, we're leaving from Santa Rosa Airport in the heart of the Sonoma Valley, and we're going directly towards the Pacific Ocean. Spectacular, isn't it? As you can see, the Pacific is very cold. Its influence extends well inland. Look at the pattern of the plots. Rather artistic.
But its beauty is not the objective. Pierre Seillan is looking for appropriate parcels to plant. He wants to enlarge the estate for his American partner, for himself, and for his daughter, who will one day succeed him.
Over there, you've got lots of wild boar, deer, mountain lions. Look at all these terraces. They're magnificent. When I was young, in the early 1970s, 1975, I started off in Montestruc, a pretty little wine-growing village in Gascony. When I was 18, I remember the first test flights of the Concorde. It took off from Blagnac nearby. It was spectacular. That magic airplane made me dream. And when you're young, it was the American dream. But I never could have imagined at that time just what life really had in store for me.
He probably never imagined either fortune or fame. Nor does he dream about it today. His driving force is still the same, the quest for perfection. In Australia, Michel Chapoutier wanders around the Melbourne Wine Festival. Like any good Frenchman, he grumbles.
Well, we're not actually going to taste wine in plastic cups, are we? Is plastic obligatory here?
Plastic cups instead of glasses, screw caps instead of traditional corks. The Australians may have shaken up tradition, but their wines no longer need to envy French wines. And Michel is in a good position to know.
There are two superb individuals. Castagna, one of the greatest Syrah in the world, and there, it's good to see you. And that, it's near our vineyards in the Pyrenees.
The Three Musketeers of the Pyrenees. It's the name of their wine region in Australia.
What is the price of your wine
$60 to $80 a bottle. The top flight's $150.
$80 to $150. They're really on the level of very fine French wines.
Are they worth it?
Yes, they're worth it, all right.
Australia is going to be, is today, but will be even more, one of the great winemaking countries of the world. And he understands that. That's why he has such an investment here.
Okay, we're going now. Off to our Pyrenees.
In his vineyards, harvesting has started.
What they're doing over there is dangerous. You could easily confuse the vine with your finger. Bits of fingers might start flying.
It's the moment of truth. The quality of the vintage depends largely on the timing of the harvest.
Are you happy with the grapes?
They're very nice. And you know, I'm surprised that we had so much with the climate that you spoke about. Huh? Yeah, the mulch.
Hello?
I'm very sticky.
Yeah.
I hope that France doesn't lose this tradition of harvesting with local harvesters. What I find interesting, we did the rounds and he introduced me to the harvesters, is that there are a lot of people from Escott, pensioners. The harvesting really shouldn't be done by bringing in contracted teams of harvesters. It was a social occasion. It was students and pensioners. That's part of the French tradition.
Run. I let the white grapes in because they bring a good acidity. A little white with the black. That's always good.
They tend to say you mustn't put them in, whereas French tradition, especially in the Rhône Valley, always puts a little bit of white in the red.
A small harvest, but of high quality. Next year, his Australian wines will be good. Michel can put away his kangaroo boots and hat. He'll come back in a month to vinify. But now it's time to return to France and the chilly weather in order to prune his Côte du Rhône vines. In Chile, Louis-Antoine is in the kitchen. Meanwhile, everyone is helping out in an improvised workshop.
Here we're labeling and capping the bottles for the United States.
With friends in the living room?
With friends in the living room. Everyone is welcome.
I've had my hands in the grapes. It'll give some tannin to the food. It'll be a small starter. Once in a while, we're less isolated. A lot of people get together like this. Friends who come for the weekend, kids, people arriving, people leaving. We make the most of it.
Louis-Antoine's life is organized around meetings and friendships, exchanging and sharing. Tonight he has a meeting at Louis's house. The son of a farmer, Louis decided to return to the wine business when he realized that the little Frenchman was doing something special in the region.
It was a coincidence, really. I first heard about Louis-Antoine around 2 years ago when he became news on television and in print. There he was, a Frenchman here in Cauquenes, and working with local grapes, our grapes. So I said to myself, it would be good to meet him. Now I wish I hadn't.
Me too.
Specialty of the house, coming up.
We met at a fellow's house and he brought me here. He did me a favor. So now we're going to help him. Maybe help him to bottle the wine and take it to the local markets to sell. That's what's exciting about it. To meet and to think that even at the far end of the world, you can find local people who share a common passion with you. He's from here, I'm not. And it's really exciting. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hello guys, how are you? Beautiful day today, eh?
It is.
Yeah.
In California, Pierre has a meeting with his engineers on a parcel of land he spotted from the helicopter.
Where we are.
Talk about the development. That's right.
Okay. Roughly, how many acres we can develop here on this area? Here?
75.
And here?
Nothing there.
Nothing there. Yeah, this slope is facing the Bennett Valley, and we can walk there. I want to see.
Okay.
He wants to develop this hill and plant Tannat grapes, a variety that he will import directly from the southwest of France.
Starting from here and going all the way down. Yeah. But this is one of the best places on the Bennett Valley, you know.
The first opinion of the wine producer, exceptional slopes and exceptional topography. There are lots of stones, there are rocks and clay, red soils, iron-rich soils. It's a real paradise for a vineyard. It's beautiful here too, isn't it? Even at 63 years old, I can see no reason to stop working. I don't feel that I'm working all that hard. I enjoy my work. Every morning, I can't wait to jump into my car and meet my workers, to go to the wine sheds, to taste the wines, to work and offer my knowledge to the team. And we enjoy ourselves. You've seen my rapport with other people. They're very cordial, very simple, very direct, and very professional. This is a little 10-hectare property that I bought. One day I'm going to build myself a house here. For when I'm older and can't travel much anymore. I'll be closer to la vérité. Must think of the future. Here's my car that I'm protecting. Let me show it to you. A 1941 Buick Coupe. What I liked so much about it when I bought it was the color. The two chestnuts represent the color of the Sonoma Valley soils. All right, it uses a lot of gas, a lot, but, you know. Okay, we use a few tricks like we used to.
Comme autrefois.
She really goes.
A vintage car and a ranch for his retirement.
That's how life is here.
For Pierre Seillan, you're never too old for the American dream.